Hey there. My name is Kaylee, and at 28, I was deeply immersed in my career at a bustling company where I worked as an office employee. This swirl of relationships and romance was far from my busy life, but as they say, life has its surprises. It was at a casual get-together with my friends where I first met Mike. He was a friend of a friend, and from the moment he entered, there was something about him that caught my attention. He was confident, almost too much, but it was his persistent attention towards me that was both flattering and a little overwhelming. "Hey, I'm Mike," he said, extending his hand with a smile that seemed practiced but charming. "Kylie," I replied, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." As the evening went on, Mike made it a point to engage me in conversation. He was interesting, I'll give him that, but what really stood out was his persistence. "So, Kylie, would you like to go out for dinner sometime?" he asked, a glint of eagerness in his eyes. I hesitated, not used to such directness. "I'm not sure. I'm quite busy with work, you know." "Come on, it'll be fun. I promise I'm a great dinner companion," he persisted, his smile unwavering. After much persuasion and, admittedly, a certain curiosity on my part, I agreed. That's how our courtship started. Mike was relentless in his pursuit. He'd show up with small gifts, send me good morning texts, and always made sure to check in on how my day was going. A few months into this whirlwind romance, he popped the question. It felt fast, but Mike's determination seemed genuine. "Kylie, I know this might seem quick, but I've never been sure about anything. Marry me," he said one evening as we walked through the city park, the stars just beginning to twinkle in the dusk sky. I remember laughing, half in disbelief and half in excitement. "Mike, are you serious? We barely know each other." "I am serious, Kylie. I've never felt this way about anyone. You're the one for me," he replied, his eyes locked on mine. Maybe it was the romance of the moment or the way he looked at me, but I said yes. It was a decision that would lead me down a path I never expected. We got married a few months later and moved into the house he owned. We agreed to split everything equally, a decision that seemed fair and modern. The equilibrium of our marriage began to falter subtly after a significant advancement in my career. My promotion was a cause for celebration, but it unexpectedly steered our relationship into uncharted territory. One evening, as we relaxed in our living room, Mike broached a topic that would unknowingly mark the beginning of a fundamental shift in our dynamic. "Kaylee, your promotion is fantastic news, but don't you think it's fair that you contribute more to our expenses now? You do earn more than me," he said, his tone casual yet firm. I paused, taken aback by his suggestion. "More?" "We had agreed on equal contributions, Mike. I thought that was working well for us." He leaned back, exuding a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Times change, Kylie. It's only logical. You have a bigger paycheck, so you should bear a larger share of our expenses." I felt a knot of unease in my stomach. "But Mike, our agreement was about equality and partnership. This feels like a departure from that." "Come on, Kylie. It's just being practical. Why should we both stretch ourselves thin when you can comfortably cover more?" He persisted, his gaze fixed on me. Reluctantly, after a brief and somewhat tense exchange, I acquiesced to his logic despite feeling a creeping sense of injustice. "All right, I'll contribute more, but let's try to keep other aspects of our partnership balanced." "Of course we will," Mike assured me quickly. Too quickly, perhaps. In the months that followed, I watched as Mike's contributions to our joint expenses dwindled and then ceased entirely. It was a gradual shift, almost imperceptible at first, but it soon became starkly evident. I found myself solely responsible for groceries, bills, and loan repayments. Feeling both the burden and the unfairness of the situation, I decided to confront him one evening. "Mike, you haven't been contributing to our expenses. We need to talk about this," I said, hoping to bring some sense of fairness back into our marriage. However, the conversation quickly soured. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, Kylie." "I'm going through a rough patch at work," Mike retorted dismissively. "But we had an agreement, Mike. It's not just about money. It's about our commitment to share our life equally," I argued, trying to keep my voice level. His response was laced with annoyance and anger. You're being petty, Kylie. This is what marriage is about, supporting each other. You earn enough, he shrugged. For both of us, the discussion ended with Mike storming out, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a growing sense of isolation. When he returned days later, he acted as if the disagreement had never happened. The imbalance in our relationship only deepened in the following months. I found myself not only contributing more financially, but also taking on the lion's share of the household responsibilities. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find the living room in disarray and Mike lounging on the couch. The sight of dirty dishes in the sink and unsorted laundry was disheartening. "Mike, the house is a mess. Can you help me clean up?" I asked, setting down my bag and taking a wary look around. He glanced around indifferently and shrugged. "Does it really matter? It's not that bad. Just leave it for now." "But we agreed to share these chores. It's not fair for me to do everything," I countered, feeling the weight of exhaustion and frustration. Mike sighed heavily, his response tinged with annoyance. "Kylie, you're always making a big deal out of nothing. I had a busy day too, you know." I knew arguing would lead nowhere. Silently, I began tidying up, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. This wasn't the partnership I had signed up for. The next blow came a few weeks later when Mike casually dropped another bombshell during dinner. "Kylie, I've been thinking. You're doing so well with your job and all. I decided to cut down my hours at work. I've switched to part-time." I almost choked on my food. Part-time? But why? "We need 2 incomes, Mike." He shrugged, seemingly unconcerned. "You're earning enough for both of us. Besides, I deserve some time to relax and pursue my hobbies." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mike, that's not how it works. We have bills, a mortgage. We can't rely on just my income." "Why not? You're doing great financially." "I think it's only fair that I get to enjoy some leisure time," he said, taking another bite of his food as if we were discussing something trivial. I sat there stunned. The imbalance had reached a new level. Not only was I contributing more financially and doing all the housework, but now I was also expected to be the primary breadwinner while he pursued leisure. It was too much. Feeling both defeated and outraged, I tried to reason with him one more time. "Mike, this isn't fair to me. We're supposed to be partners, supporting each other, not one person carrying all the weight." Mike looked at me, his expression one of indifference. "Kylie, you're just overreacting as usual. This is for the best. You'll see." But I didn't see. As the days turned into weeks and then months, I found myself working harder than ever, both at my job and at home. Mike's contributions had all but ceased. He spent his days pursuing hobbies or lounging around while I struggled to keep everything afloat. For several weeks, I had been grappling with the new reality of our marriage. Mike's decision to work part-time, leaving the bulk of our financial responsibilities on my shoulders, was a hard pill to swallow. But what came next was even more disheartening and threw our relationship into further turmoil. It started with small inconsistencies in our finances that I couldn't quite place. Then one day a colleague of Mike's casually mentioned seeing him at the local arcade frequently, playing slot machines. I was stunned. That evening, I confronted him. "Mike, I heard you've been spending your afternoons at the arcade playing slots. Is this where all your salary is going?" I asked, the frustration evident in my voice. Mike, caught off guard, scoffed. "So what if I play a few games? It's my money and I can spend it how I like." "But we're struggling to keep up with our expenses because of your part-time job, and now this." I couldn't hide my disbelief and anger. He rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, Kylie. It's just a bit of fun. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it." "A big deal, Mike. This is serious. You're gambling away your earnings while I'm working overtime to make ends meet," I exclaimed, feeling a mix of anger and desperation. Mike's expression turned cold. "I don't need a lecture from you. It's not like I'm blowing thousands. Just drop it, Kylie." But I couldn't just drop it. The next few days were tense, and then, following another argument about his gambling, Mike stormed out. He returned a few days later, drunk and unapologetic. Seeing him in such a state broke my heart, but it also strengthened my resolve to address the issue. "Mike, this has to stop. I think you need help. There are therapists who specialize in gambling addiction. Please, let's consider it, I pleaded, hoping to reach out to him. His reaction was harsh and dismissive. Therapy? For what? I don't have a problem, Kylie, and I definitely don't need you trying to fix me. But Mike, I'm just worried about you, about us. We can't go on like this, I said, my voice tinged with worry. He sneered. Worried? No, you just want to control me like everything else. I don't need your help or anyone else's. His words stung, and I realized that the man I once knew, the one I had built a life with, was slipping away, lost in a cycle of denial and destructive behavior. I stood there, watching him walk away from me, feeling a profound sense of helplessness and despair. The turmoil at home was only one part of my growing list of troubles. At work, things had taken a drastic turn for the worse with the arrival of a new boss, Mr. Henderson. His management style was authoritarian to the point of being despotic, a stark contrast to the supportive environment I had grown accustomed to. One particularly grueling day, Mr. Henderson called me into his office. The room felt cold and uninviting, much like his demeanor. Callie, your performance lately has been subpar. I need you to step it up, he began, not even bothering with a greeting. I was taken aback. I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson, but I've been managing my tasks as best as I can under the circumstances. He leaned forward, his gaze sharp. Excuses won't cut it. I expect more from my team. You'll need to start working overtime to meet your targets. And remember, there are penalties for underperformance. The threat hung heavily in the air. I felt a surge of frustration and injustice. That seems a bit harsh. The workload has increased significantly, and I've been doing my best to keep up, Mr. Henderson. This is not a negotiation, Kylie. It's an expectation. If you can't meet it, perhaps this job isn't for you. I left his office feeling deflated and overwhelmed. The pressure at work was becoming unbearable, compounded by the stress I was facing at home with Mike. It felt like I was caught in a relentless storm with no respite in sight. And then Mr. Thompson sat down at my desk. He was a regular client of our company, known for his amiable demeanor and understanding nature. Our interactions were always professional yet cordial, making him one of the few bright spots in an otherwise stressful work environment. As we discussed the project details, he paused and looked at me with a concerned expression. You look particularly tired today, Kylie. Is everything all right? He asked, his tone genuine and kind. I hesitated for a moment, not used to such personal concern in the workplace. But something about his sincere approach made me open up. It's just the workload and the environment here. It's been very challenging lately, I admitted, offering a weary smile. Mr. Thompson nodded understandingly. You're a valuable asset to any team, Kylie. If you ever find that it's too much and decide to leave, I'd be more than happy to have someone of your caliber join my company. We value hard work, but we also believe in a healthy work-life balance, he said earnestly. That evening, as I stayed late to catch up on work, my colleague Jenna stopped by my desk. Kylie, you look exhausted. This new regime is taking a toll on all of us. I sighed, rubbing my tired eyes. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, Jenna. The demands are unreasonable. Jenna nodded in agreement. It's been brutal. Henderson's running this place like a dictatorship. Just don't let this job break you, Kylie. You're worth more than this, Jenna said, offering a sympathetic smile before leaving. Her words resonated with me as I finally headed home well past the usual hour. The thought of leaving my job was scary, but so was the thought of enduring this toxic environment. I quit, definitely. The situation at work with Mr. Henderson had deteriorated to an intolerable level. Each day was a grueling marathon of unrealistic demands and unrelenting criticism. The stress was unbearable, but I was trying to hold on for the sake of financial security. However, there's only so much a person can take. It all came to a head on a Thursday, a day that started like any other but would end up changing everything. Mr. Henderson summoned me to his office that morning. His office, always stark and intimidating, felt even more oppressive than usual. Kaylee, your performance is slipping. I'm not seeing the results I need, Mr. Henderson began, his voice cold and accusatory. I was already fried from the constant pressure. I'm doing everything I can, Mr. Henderson. The workload is immense, and I'm only human. That's no excuse. I'd expect better from you. You need to put in extra hours. No more excuses, or there will be consequences, he threatened, his eyes boring into mine. I felt a surge of frustration mixed with desperation. Extra hours? I'm already stretched thin. The demands you're putting on us are unreasonable. He leaned forward, a menacing look on his face. This is a business, Kelly, not a charity. You do what needs to be done, or you can find employment elsewhere. The unfairness of his words, the blatant disregard for my well-being, it all became too much. My frustration boiled over into a resolve I didn't know I had. That's it. I can't do this anymore. I quit. I announced, my voice steady yet loud, a stark contrast to the quivering feeling inside. Mr. Henderson's face turned a shade of red I hadn't seen before. Quit? Fine. Leave. We don't need weak links here. I walked out of his office, and in that moment, despite the fear of uncertainty, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The relief, however, was short-lived. Returning home early, I found Mike in his usual spot on the couch. His surprise at seeing me so early quickly turned to concern when he saw my expression. What happened, Kylie? Why are you home so early? He asked, sitting up. I threw my bag down, the events of the day pouring out of me. I quit my job, Mike. I couldn't take it anymore. Mr. Henderson was impossible. Mike's concern quickly morphed into anger. You quit? Just like that? What about our bills, our expenses? How could you be so irresponsible? I was stunned by his lack of empathy. I expected some support, Mike. The job was killing me. I thought you, of all people, would understand. He stood up, his anger palpable. Support? You expect me to support us both now? You put us in a financial mess. The argument escalated quickly, with Mike's frustration boiling over into a demand I never saw coming. He retrieved a folder from the desk and slammed it on the coffee table. Here, sign these. I can't be with someone who can't hold down a job, he said, pushing the divorce papers toward me. I looked at the papers and at him, my heart sinking. Divorce? You want a divorce over this? Yes, I do. You've just proven you can't be relied upon. Sign them, Kylie, he demanded. Feeling a complex mix of anger, sadness, and disbelief, I numbly took the pen and signed the papers. My marriage was ending just like that. Now get out, he said coldly once I had signed. I packed a few belongings and left the house. As I closed the door behind me, I felt an overwhelming sense of loss, but also a flicker of hope. I was leaving behind a job and a marriage that had become suffocating. Sitting alone in the modest hotel room with the last remnants of my former life packed in a suitcase, I realized that I was at a crossroads. The weight of my failed marriage and the collapse of my career loomed over me. But within that chaos, there was a glimmer of opportunity, a chance to start anew. The next morning, as I sipped a solitary cup of coffee, my phone buzzed. It was Jenna, my former colleague and friend. Hey, Kylie, I heard about what happened. Are you okay? Jenna's voice was filled with concern. I sighed, staring out of the hotel window. I'm okay, Jenna, just trying to figure out my next move. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. A fresh start, she said, trying to be encouraging. Her words resonated with me. Maybe you're right. I just need to find a new job, something less stressful. That's the spirit, and hey, I might have something for you. Remember Mr. Thompson, that client we both liked? He asked about you yesterday. After the call, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I spent the day updating my resume and reflecting on what I truly wanted for my career. The following week, I met with Mr. Thompson. He greeted me warmly, his office a stark contrast to the cold environment I had left. Kelly, I need someone with your expertise. The role is challenging but much less stressful than your last job, I promise, he said with a chuckle. We discussed the details and everything about the job felt right, the responsibilities, the work environment, the balance promised. By the end of our meeting, I had a new job, one that seemed like the perfect step forward. That night in my hotel room, I called my mom to update her on everything. She had been worried about me since the divorce. "Mom, I got a new job, and it's a good one," I said, a smile in my voice. "Oh, Kylie, that's wonderful news. I'm so proud of you," she replied, her voice filled with relief and happiness. We talked for a long time, and her words of encouragement and love bolstered my spirits further. I went to bed that night with a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. 3 months into my new job, life was gradually looking up. It was during this time of personal growth that I received an unexpected call from Mike, my ex-husband, which only underscored how much had changed. The phone rang early on a Saturday morning. Mike's frantic and desperate voice filled the line. "Kylie, you have to come back. I'm struggling here. The bills, the debts, it's all too much," he pleaded, his voice a mix of panic and despair. I held the phone, feeling a complex mix of emotions. "Mike, we're divorced. You made your decision. I've moved on," I responded, my voice firm yet calm. He continued to implore. "But I need you, Kylie. Everything's falling apart. I'm drowning in debts, and I've lost so much money." His words no longer had the power they once might have. "I'm sorry, Mike, but you have to manage on your own. I have my own life now," I said, ending the call with a sense of finality. After hanging up, I felt a reaffirmation of my newfound independence. Mike, who had once discarded me, now realized my value, but it was too late. Later that week, a conversation with Liz, a mutual friend, shed more light on Mike's situation. "It's bad, Kylie. He's lost a ton of money. He's working 2 jobs now, but he keeps getting fired because of his drinking and gambling," she revealed. The news, while saddening, didn't surprise me. Mike had chosen his path, and now he was facing the consequences of his choices. It was a stark contrast to the stability and success I was experiencing. That same week, Mr. Thompson, my boss, called me into his office. He handed me an envelope. "Kylie, you've exceeded our expectations. This is a bonus for your hard work," he said, his smile genuine. I was touched and grateful. "Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson. I really appreciate this," I replied, feeling valued and recognized. Leaving his office, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction and achievement. My decision to leave a toxic job and a failing marriage was paying off in ways I had never imagined. As I walked home that day, past the familiar streets and faces, I realized how much my life had changed for the better. I had found a career that rewarded me and built a life of